We've done research on the business model of labor exploitation and labor trafficking. It is a structural issue, and it is very important to realize that labor exploitation is a low-risk, high-gain form of corporate crime motivated by profit-making. Different types of legal structures are often used to hide away grey and illegal activities and illicit flows of money. For example, we've identified that cascade subcontracting, meaning long subcontract chains, posting of workers, bogus self-employment, and use of fronts and strawman and letterbox companies are used to hide away these illicit gains. Also, the links to shadow economy are evident. The business model of labor exploitation is based on two strategies: cost reduction and revenue generation. These happen at the same time in most cases. So cost reduction, that relates to underpayment and withholding of payments and wages, longer hours for exploited workers, not providing legally required safe and healthy work environment, evasion of taxes, and evasion of indeed all social and health contributions, while at the same time revenue is also generated by imposing upfront fees to the workers for securing the job or for their placement or job opportunity, as well as inflation of various costs such as transportation cost, housing, food, clothes, or even work equipment and tools. And in many cases, both of these streams are used by the perpetrators to maximize their profit and to gain illegal profit from exploiting the workers. The modus operandi of labor trafficking is something that we've done research during the THB project by mapping the modus operandi in Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, and Ukraine. During the course of the project, we were obviously had some global events that had major impact on the situation and movement of people. In the first place, the COVID-19 pandemic affected the movement of people and potentially led to changes in the modus operandi of the traffickers and perpetrators, as well as it had impact on detection of trafficking and exploitation by different authorities and NGOs globally, and indeed in our 5 countries as well. However, still not a great deal is known about the longer terms of impact of the pandemic on modus operandi and the routes used by traffickers and facilitators. Furthermore, last year in 2022, the geopolitical landscape of Europe changed rapidly as a result of the escalation of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February, which led to massive flees of Ukrainian refugees and has also resulted in an inflation of cost. And this will obviously have impact on the risk of trafficking among especially these Ukrainian refugees, but also on people that suffer from unemployment and this inflation of cost that has increased their vulnerability. Regarding victim profile, we know that labor migrants include a variety of persons from different backgrounds and education levels. Especially asylum seekers and undocumented migrants may feel compelled to accept job offers with poor terms and conditions, and they may end up in situations of exploitation. Undocumented migrants are often very unwilling to report even serious exploitation because it might result in their deportation. We've also identified that socially marginalized persons, such as those who are suffering from substance abuse problems, who are homeless, or have been recently released from prison, they may be targeted by perpetrators who take advantage of their vulnerable situation and poor economic situation and place them in situations of exploitation. Abusive recruitment is one of the key risk factors for labor exploitation and trafficking. It includes collecting excessive or made-up fees for securing the job in the first place, for travel documents and for different service costs. We have examples where people have paid up to 10,000 to 20,000 euros even for a job opportunity, for example, in Finland. Last year, in 2022 and 23, we've had a lot of discussion and increasing number of cases where this charging of fees has taken place. And there's an increased awareness also on the risks. The fee can be also indirectly charged, for example, in the form of wage deductions. So a person might receive a very low salary for the first year because they are paying a fee for the job. And obviously, this kind of debt situation makes workers vulnerable to further exploitation. Here we have a case example from 2022, where a criminal investigation was launched in the agricultural sector in Närpiö in the west coast of Finland. And there the suspected middlemen reported that were reportedly charging 10,000 to 20,000 euros from tens of Vietnamese migrant workers to secure a job in Finland. So after arriving in the country, the workers were accommodated in very crowded and isolated apartments, and they had very few opportunities to change their living and working conditions. The suspects involved in this case included a Vietnamese couple and 2 local greenhouse entrepreneurs. Since then, the police in that area has identified more and more potential suspects and also victims, and the investigation has escalated and has different strands. But in this one obvious case, the case has now proceeded to the prosecutor's office. During the Elect THB project and the mapping that we've done, we've identified that different schemes are used to facilitate labor trafficking and exploitation. One of those schemes is bogus self-employment, and especially the use of light entrepreneurship in connection with labor exploitation, which is a growing trend. This light entrepreneurship refers to a situation where a person uses an invoicing service, but because it's a bogus self-employment, this person doesn't actually know that they are independent entrepreneurs, and this is a way to exploit them. The workers themselves in these situations don't understand that they are light entrepreneurs in the first place, and that it means that they are responsible for their own employer obligations. So they might have signed a contract and have not realized that indeed they are not workers, but must take care of their own employer obligations and taxes and payments. This has happened mostly in the construction sector and in the cleaning sector. as well as in food delivery. But there is potential for this kind of practice to move also to other sectors. And the whole platform work in this way is a sort of a gray area. In the future, we will see possibly more cases that are linked to exploitation of migrant workers. Obviously, self-employment is of course very much legal, but when it comes to bogus self-employment, it must be highlighted that this is a way to exploit the workers and indeed minimize the cost for the perpetrators. I have a case example here concerning exploitation of Ukrainian workers in a large construction site in Tampere in central Finland in late 2022. Where this sort of bogus self-employment and light entrepreneurship scheme was utilized. So the workers did not know that they were in fact so-called light entrepreneurs. They were supplied via a Latvian company and worked long hours from Monday to Saturday and received very low wages or payments. The labor inspectors carried out an inspection already there in the Latvian company in November 22. And according to the inspection report, there were several violations of the labor code and legislation that they found out. The Latvian company denied all accusations of labor exploitation as the construction trade union brought this case to the media, and it was discussed then in several news articles. As far as we know, the investigation into this case is still open. In another case example that I present to you here, the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation and the Estonian National Criminal Police concluded an investigation into a huge labor trafficking case in the construction sector in the spring of 2023, so this spring. In this case, an Estonian-based organization consisting of different companies and individuals who belong to a criminal organization deceived several dozen workers from Estonia and Latvia and Ukraine into coming to work in Finland in very exploitative circumstances. According to the investigation press release, the criminals gained criminal proceeds of over 2.3 million euros from this case. And the organization sought to disguise the criminal activities that they were conducting by setting up separate companies for transferring and concealing its final criminal proceeds. So according to the case description, in fact, the Estonian suspects recruited hundreds of workers by misleading them and put them in a situation of debt. And some of the workers also encountered violence or the threat of violence. But ultimately, 21 persons were identified as victims in this case. And they worked in very poor conditions with long working hours and had little or no possibility for breaks with little or no pay at all. And what was interesting and contrary to what was promised during the recruitment, in fact, obviously the workers had to pay for their accommodation. And in addition, they had to pay for equipment and working clothes. And then on top of that, the employer fined the victims and deducted sums from their wages for reasons such as absence, poorly done work, or the use of phone during work hours. And then further on, the workers were registered for a billing service company as light entrepreneurs without their knowledge of this arrangement or the meaning of light entrepreneurship in the first place. This case has now proceeded to Helsinki District Court, and the prosecutor is trying to get the sentence for aggravated human trafficking in this case. So we will see what happens. So ultimately, I want to make the point that human trafficking is driven by the possibility to make money on many different levels. And obviously, the businesses that benefit from all of this are not just criminal organizations, but can include also a variety of different legitimate actors and businesses who might not even be aware of the risks that they have involved in when they come close to this phenomenon. And in general, the human trafficking operations involve a variety of costs at each stage of the project process. So during recruitment and transportation and exploitation, there are various costs for the perpetrators, but which are often borne by the victims and may be disguised and inflated so that they have to pay these extravagant sums of money for different fees, recruitment fees, but also for accommodation, transportation, all of that. And it is all used to maximize the profits of the perpetrators. So therefore, it is very important that in the criminal investigations, the investigators look into the financial flows. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of financial investigation in these cases. Thank you.